Sure.
Perfect. There we see you. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Isha, and I am the community manager at NIC. Thank you for joining us at our Hacktivate 4.0 launch event. This is a series of hackathons that we do biannually. Previously, we've done one on education, then we did one on health. A few months ago, we did one on agriculture. We got a phenomenal response for that. Over 300 applications from 12 different countries. And keeping in mind the needs of the current times, the way we're going, the way the world is going, we wanted to do one on fintech this time. So I'll just quickly walk you through the agenda of the day and then we'll start. So we have with us for the welcome note, we have Zuhair Saab. Then we are very, very grateful to ABL. They are our co-sponsors for this event. And we have a keynote by Ijlal Saab, who's the lead innovation officer at ABL. He'll be discussing a bit about their open APIs that they've just launched. Then we have a very exciting panel discussion on the challenges that we face in the financial sector these days, how fintech is now it's picking up, how people can solve the challenges that are in the financial sector through technology. And then towards the end, because we opened our applications on the 10th, 2 days ago, we started receiving a lot of queries in terms of how you can apply, how to go about the application. So we have a special segment where we're going to walk you through the application step by step, and we're going to take your questions on the spot also. Zuhair Saab, whenever you're ready, we can begin.
Ji, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us. Good afternoon, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome. Thank you also for our panelists for joining us and for Allied Bank to support us in such a very strong fashion. I just wanted to kind of open the debate and the discussion by putting some things on the ground, which I see at least from my point of view, about Pakistan, about the economy, and about the startup sector. I mean, some of these numbers I will not have to, they're not new to you, they're probably very familiar, but I think it's worth mentioning that we are today in Pakistan, despite all the stuff that we talk about, I think at the cusp of something very, very interesting going on. We have a tremendously talented young population, almost 133 million people who are below the age of 30, and therefore more biased towards technology, if I may say so. We have a low unemployment rate and we have a growing middle class. GDP for 2021 is forecast as something like $280 billion. And the purchasing power parity, which is a more relevant term in my opinion, is around $5,200 per capita. So again, something which I think is a very interesting factor here, something to think about. And as we look at the overall ecosystem, despite COVID in 2020, most of the year was written off with COVID and people generally believe that things were at a low. But it's very exciting to learn that in Pakistani terms, 2020 was a 97% increase in funding of startups all across the country and a 45% increase in deal flow. The numbers maybe not huge, it's $77 million, which is what Magnet has reported, but also significant that since 2015, almost $200 million has been put into the Pakistani startup ecosystem. So to me, those numbers are interesting. I think they are a symbol of something which is very interesting happening in our market. And, even the World Bank is saying that, some of the ease of doing business issues, we moved up again this year, 28 points, which is, again, very, very positive, in my opinion, something to be very excited about. Let's look at, just the connectivity in Pakistan. Often when I speak with people abroad, they're very surprised to learn that we have 176 million mobile connections across the networks, the different networks that we have. And almost 91 million are 3G, 4G users. Now that's a huge figure. If you look at the population of Germany, for example, it's around 80 million people, or the United Kingdom. We are at 91 million 3G, 4G users right now. And that number is forecast to go to almost 100 million by the end of 2021. So again, very interesting, very exciting numbers to think about. And then if you look at the growth in the overall economy, it's again interesting. We have a rapid e-commerce market, which is almost $4 billion in value at this stage. Now, of course, a lot of it is cash, but herein to me lies the opportunity of what one can possibly do. And that's what brings me to the whole discussion around fintech and how this could radically change the way we do business in the next 3 to 5 years. And if you look at, JazzCash and EasyPesa, Finja, SadaPay, and Connect, and so many others which are coming through right now in trying to break into this interesting marketplace. We also have things like Rast from the State Bank of Pakistan, which is been introduced very recently. All of those things to me are building the rails of something very, very interesting. And I think a fintech hackathon is very much, I think, the topic of the moment. I think we need to have a very interesting, productive discussion around what we potentially already are sitting on. And also, of course, identify a lot of the still, the holdups, if you will, the things that we need to address and move things forward. And I think the hackathon will bring to us both the interesting new ideas and discussions that we need to have, but also to identify some of these issues, which we can hopefully then take up at a higher level in the government circles and with the FBR, with the State Bank of Pakistan, and try and push those issues through, just as we've done with great success when we've had our national investor summits in the last couple of years. All of that, I think, bodes really well. I wish you all a very, very interesting discussion today and in the weeks to come as we head towards the FinTech Hackathon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zuhair Saab. I'd like to now invite Ijlal, Lead Digital Innovations at Allied Bank Limited. Ijlal, over to you.
Thank you so much, Isha. And thank you so much, Zuhair Saab, for the sharing wonderful insights. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ijlal Haider, and I'm the Lead Digital Innovations for Allied Bank. It is an honor to be among all of you. Before we start, we would want to thank National Incubator Center for giving us this opportunity to be part of something so significant and crucial for the development of the startup ecosystem within Pakistan. Allied Bank being one of the largest commercial banks in Pakistan with 1,400 branches and 1,500 plus ATMs, we realize the significance of digital solutions and providing convenience to our 4 million plus customers. And recently, we've taken many initiatives that would support this stance. This includes our award-winning, digital lockers, our self-service branches that, we've launched on a pilot and displayed at multiple places, including LUMS, our WhatsApp banking. So WhatsApp banking is basically, you do your basic banking transactions on your WhatsApp, on your phone, on the go. Personal finance management, and also business internet banking for corporates. But the list just doesn't end here. We're the first one in the industry to launch a voice assistance banking through Siri, because accessibility is something that's very close to the hearts of the people at Allied Bank. We also have a dedicated team in our Innovation Lab. So Innovation Lab is a dedicated space within our digital banking group where it's an entrepreneurial group that works on developing disruptive technology, also works on improving the delivery timelines of certain products using agile project management tools, and further develop on our innovative offerings. But coming to the topic in discussion, we think that fintechs, startups, and technology companies need to partner with financial institutions as an immediate way to address a lack of market experience or regulatory expertise, so that we can leverage synergies and create a stronger proposition by bringing together the core competencies of both parties. So such partnerships allow developers and us to offer people cutting edge, added value digital services while co-educating and sharing the burdens of compliance, risk, and even investment costs. So, you've all seen the launch of branchless banking and, alternative banking experience. And even the figures that, or the stats that, Zaheer Saab has shared, you've got 176 million people using mobile connections with, 91 billion, as I recall, for 3G connection. That's a huge number. And this has brought convenience, but if you look at the stats overall, Pakistan still has a noticeable unbanked and underbanked population, with mostly people relying on informal and unregulated financial means. I've personally seen this myself. So why are people still preferring to use cash for their everyday needs? Such you go and you pay your barber or your tailor. Or I've experienced it myself when I take an Uber, an Uber driver would say, rather than sending money to his Uber wallet, I just give him cash right away. So the financial industry overall, including the state bank with its directives, such as RAST, is working on bridging this gap and on its accessibility within the society at an individual level and at a merchant level as well. But what we want from you, the teams participating here, is to using your own experiences, your own diverse background, sort of a solution, a scalable solution that should assist in this matter. And as part of this vision, Allied Bank, Isha said that we've launched it recently. It's actually been quite a while. We've launched, a multi-asset open banking developer portal and have made it available to a wide ecosystem for third-party developers, fintechs, vendors, and partners, enabling them to connect their enterprises directly to ABL's engine, so to speak. So the portal provides, technical documentation, reference guides, sample codes, and interactive tool for many of the technology. Our open banking strategy is built on the premise that going forward, an increasingly broader range of partnerships and collaborations will be the new disruptive factor in the financial industry. And this proposition is unique, and I'll tell you why. Because it allows us to literally tap into almost any part of the value chain using a combination of APIs and technologies. So partnerships and collaborations are key to Allied Bank's business model, and it's going to work as a facilitator. So we wanted this portal, the one that's going to be used in this hackathon, to be a natural resource for developers, and no matter what case or this industry gap they try to fulfill. So additionally, developers can use these APIs to integrate directly into the solution or develop a completely bespoke front-end platform with their own unique user engines, but with Allied Bank's technology on the back end. The portal also brings significant improvements to Allied Bank's open banking offering. And after this hackathon, because there's a two-way communication here, we're going to use the feedback that we get from the teams to further make developments on this portal. Allied Bank is in pursuit of establishing itself as a leading digital financial institution. And because of this portal, we've already had many API hits and a vast reach. But just because you have your doors open doesn't mean that people would come on knocking on it. So after launching these APIs, it became clear to us that we need to work actively with the development community in order to monetize these. So the challenge comes of engaging these third-party developers, people like you, the teams that would be participating in these hackathon themselves, who will ultimately use these APIs to build new financial and non-financial services. So we're using this hackathon with NIC, wonderful team here, as part of our engagement strategy, because hackathons build a bridge into the developer community. And for Allied Bank, our competency and business model lie in providing technology-based solutions, tech-based solutions. And this forum will help us establish a two-way conversation between those that develop these solutions and the people that use them. So generally, if you look from broader spectrum, tech hackathons have two broad perspectives. One is to brainstorm ideas in a particular area of relevance, right? And the other is to nurture the development of the development community of potential partners. And at Allied, we're interested in both. So let's maybe take a step back and look at the real world examples. Last year, Barclays, one of the leading banks in the world, has ran its largest ever hackathon in Mumbai and Manchester at the same time. So the event gathered more than 1,000 participants and distributed over 547 hackathon teams. And the topic of this hackathon was the new European Payment Service Directive, PSD2. And so people coming from digital banking here would know exactly what I'm referring to. So this directive would force the disintegration of verticals in finance, as banks now had to open their backbone system to third-party developers. And for 36 hours, these teams in this hackathon worked intensely hard, developing their ideas and prototypes. And Barclays provided access to their data, their bank systems for a brand new set of APIs. Something that ABL will be doing here as well to support and facilitate the teams participating. So in this way, this was a test of technology, and the teams that participated got access to their coder tools, the documentation that was needed. Also, there were further partners such as Google, Twitter, IBM, Amazon, and the teams got got guidance. And these companies are also looking out for great ideas who they can work on with the future. So that's a hint that Allied Bank is doing something similar here too. But coming to the important question, who was the winner of this hackathon, right? And if you ask us, if you ask Allied Bank, we believe everyone is a winner. It is because the guidance and the learning that you get from this experience is unparalleled. I mean, even I am looking forward to learn from the panel discussion that's going to come up right after. We've got such fantastic panelists from highly reputable organizations. We've got people from Jazz, we've got people from Karantas, and we've got people from Taste Financial Services. And moreover, apart from the prizes that ABL is going to offer in this hackathon, we actually have our eyes open on the solutions that you develop. So if we see a right mix, right? If we see a good solution that's scalable, that can be integrated to our platform, we're more than welcome. And I'll actually give you a hint that we're more than welcome to partner up with you. So in short, we believe that through this hackathon, we'll be able to manage to attract the right people and provide them with the right resources, foster internal and external innovation, and promote an out-of-the-box approach. In addition, we want these teams to assist us in changing how legacy banking works, and assist us in changing the DNA of a bank and the society on a greater level. Because the solutions that you would develop now, there's a good chance that maybe a few days, a few months from now, once it's fully developed, once we see good, value in it, people would be using them on an everyday level. So, in conclusion, I think I've taken a bit more time. We're very excited to see the solutions that we get. And, we wish you all the best for the hackathon. You will love seeing the problem statements that we have developed. You will hopefully enjoy the open banking portal. And, we look forward to your feedback as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Back to you, Isha.
Ijlal, just a quick question before we jump onto our panel discussion. Someone has asked, can you please shed some light on P2P platforms and regulations around it?
Wonderful, definitely. So the thing is, if you look at our open banking APIs, we've got a few, right? One would these be IBFT, which is funds transfer, from one bank account to another bank account. So this is something that you can incorporate towards your solution, and you can transfer money P2P through this as well. So it depends on the solution that you create right now. Moreover, we do have peer-to-peer transfers. So we're working on developing this through messages or through WhatsApp or through Twitter as well, using our Oracle Banking Digital Experience, which is a backend for our application. So this is something that's possible. It's been happening. And if you use an API, you can develop a whole solution around P2P, peer-to-peer payments as well. If you talk about the regulations, the state bank has allowed to, has granted EMI license to different corporates who fulfill the eligibility criteria. So there's a lot of work that's going on at that end. And if you look at Rask, which is a recent development, it is doing something very similar. So you would see, you will be seeing a lot of progress and the conversion and the adaptability of it in towards our, in the society. And I'll give you, I'll just add over here as well that if you look at Allied Bank, right? So it's a bank with thousands of employees, and I consider every employee as being tech savvy. And I tell you why, because all of these employees are using our MyABL digital banking application to transfer funds. So there's 100% conversion rate here within the bank itself. So regardless of whatever position you are. And we're looking at this conversion and adaptability in a society on a greater level as well. And because of COVID, you've seen this being accelerated because the whole process of the adaptability of digital financial transactions or P2P payments. And in the next few months, inshallah, you would be seeing this being accelerated on an even higher level. Wonderful. And I hope that answers the question.
I hope Ijlal was able to answer your question. Thank you very much, Ijlal. Thank you for your time. We now move forward to the panel discussion, and I'd let our program manager, Zishan Shahid, take over.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. To those who have joined us on Zoom and those who are watching us on Facebook across different pages across the globe. My name is Ishanman Shahid and I am Program Manager with the National Incubation Center, Pakistan. I want to begin by wishing my personal best to everyone, for you and for your family's health and safety during these difficult times. During this discussion, during this panel, we'll be discussing about the opportunities for innovation and challenges in the fintech space. And to define it simply, fintech refers to innovations in the financial and technology crossover space, and typically refers to companies or services that use technology to provide financial services to businesses or customers. Many groundbreaking developments like PayPal and even cryptocurrency belonging to the fintech space have created disruption and transformed the financial landscape for businesses and consumers across the globe, ranging from digital banking to e-payments to digital asset management, and list is by no means exhaustive. So, and by the end of next year, by the way, global fintech market is expected to hit the figure of US dollar 8.3 trillion. And so many new trends are shaping in the fintech industry globally, as well as in emerging economies such as Pakistan. And talking about Pakistan in particular, originally ATMs and debit and credit cards were the main fintech products. But recently we see a surge in digital financial services, including branchless banking, enhanced payment systems, and adoption of financial tools by the unbanked population. In spite of these positive trends, we still have a long way to go when it comes to regulating fintech and fostering innovation in this space. And to discuss the recent developments, opportunities for the fintech in a global as well as local context, we have with us a very power-packed panel of experts from the industry. Joining us today are Fahad Hassan, who's the development specialist as MSMEs at Asian Development Bank, Noreen Hayat, co-founder Tez Financial Services, Jafar Shirazi, regional head, alternate distribution channel Jazz Cash, and last but not the least, Taimur Ali, Associate Director Innovation, Digital Financial Services at Karandas. I would like to thank you all for joining us today for this discussion. Along with the questions, along with my question, we'll also try to take few questions by the audience in the end. If we do not have the time constraint by then, you can send your questions on chat here on the Zoom, or if you're on the Facebook, then you can maybe send your questions over there, and my team will be passing on the questions to me. So to begin with, Fahad, my first question will be from you. As I mentioned, there's a lot happening in this space. So what, in your opinion, are some of the most prominent trends that are shaping the fintech industry globally, as well as in Pakistan in particular? And when talking about Pakistan in particular, how do you think recent steps taken by the government or by the regulator are creating an enabling environment?
Zishan, thank you for your question and for inviting ADB to this esteemed panel looking to hack these very pertinent issues. And very special thanks to the always inspiring Zohair Saab and the whole team. And it was great to hear Ijlal as well. You know, I just applied for a credit card and they've been asking me from a different bank, and they've been asking me a lot of, I've gone through, I think, 10 different forms, which I think in a 2021 doesn't make sense. So we're very much looking forward to a more digitalized commercial banking space. From the ADB perspective, I think we're a multilateral institution. So how do we fit in with these very interesting, Tez Financial and Karandas? And so I think multilateral institutions, our job is to help build the enabling environment behind innovation. So whether that means better infrastructure, a better debate around on public policy, human capital development. So entrepreneurs, where do they find good people to help build their businesses? And finally, access to finance. I used to be an entrepreneur, and access to finance was always my big issue, which is why I think fintech is so interesting. So, and not to toot our own horn, but ADBs right now in the ASEAN countries, we're getting involved with supporting credit score systems, AI-enabled credit score systems, cloud-based banking apps, and branchless banking. In Pakistan, we are right now designing a program to support women and rural-based MSMEs through the microfinance sector, and we're looking to help some of these microfinance providers become more digitalized and have a better outreach. Now, coming back to your question on prominent trends, I think we can look at this from multiple perspectives. I was just in leading up to this panel, I was looking, and last year there was a list of 100, the 100 top global fintech innovators, and 34 of them came from Asian countries. So, the question that comes to mind is, what was the enabling environment that allowed these 34 innovators, not from Silicon Valley or from other places, but from Asian countries to come up? What was the regulatory landscape? What kind of infrastructure was there? And how do we get Pakistan there? Um, Financial innovation leads to financial inclusion, but in terms of regulation, of course, it leads to enhanced regulation as well. Cybersecurity, protection of your privacy, data governance, and things like that. So, regulators really have to find the right balance between building that enabling environment as well as meeting development targets. So, the government has a lot of targets for regulators as well. State Bank, for example, always has targets on, in financial inclusion. And finally, also regulating the risk involved. So in short, the fintech innovators are moving very fast, and the regulators have to keep up. I think Pakistan, despite many challenges, has been able to keep up. With the launch of Rust has been alluded to, the SCCP regulatory sandbox, this collateral registry. So I think there's a lot going on, but regulators have to keep on their toes, because they have to really keep up. Um, of course, the other, I think, big elephant in the room is, when we talk about recent trends, is we've just been through this never-ending year of COVID, right? And how does that impact? It seems like it's negatively impacted so many industries. I think big tech and technology is one industry that has seen gains, and especially I think big technology, I'm sure they have excess cash flows. Zohair Saab was talking about e-commerce booming in Pakistan. So tech has excess cash flow, and they have a strong appetite. So you're going to find a lot more overtures into fintech, and I think that that's going to put the banks as well as the telcos, on their toes, and they're going to have to follow suit. Um, just lastly, I think whenever we talk about technology and developing the fintech space, I think keeping in mind where Pakistan is, the development issues that we have to ensure that we employ our investments in digital infrastructure to support the interface between the digital economy and the non-digital economy. They always say, it's not about the end goal, it's about the journey. I think we have to keep this one end goal in mind, that it's about the non-digital economy and how do we bring these people on board. But thanks so much, Zishan. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahad. Thank you very much. Some very interesting insight. And my takeaway from this particular comment or from your answer is that actually the fintech startups or the fintech innovations are driving regulations, and regulations are, it's not the other way. Regulations are not driving innovation over it. So this would be my takeaway from this comment. So my next question is with Noreen. Noreen, in Pakistan, more than 100 million adults form the unbanked population, and most of these are women. Tell us, how can digital financial services increase financial inclusion in an economy like ours, and what is your startup doing in particular to address this problem? What role do you think startups and MSMEs can play in this regard?
Thank you very much, Ishan. And thank you to NIC for having me and Tez, and best of luck to all the participants at the hackathon. But I think this is a question that we all as an industry have been trying to answer. Whether or not we've nailed it, that's still a question. I think we're working towards it. But I think as we all are aware, digitization has been recognized as a key driver. to accelerate growth. And it can actually bridge inequalities across various dimensions, be it urban, rural, female, male, unserved, underserved, people with disabilities. But perhaps amongst all these digital divides, the most worrisome is the gender divide. And as you mentioned, this is a key cause of concern. About 26% of all females. So, within the gender divide, there are two main areas of concern here. One of them is the digital divide in terms of mobile phone ownership, which actually we consider to be the medium for that digital transformation to take place. So Pakistan, amongst the countries in the mobile gender gap report, stands to have the highest gender gap of about 38%, whereby only 26% of the females they own a mobile phone as opposed to 65% males. And when you talk about the financial inclusion gap, this is again about a 30% gap. And this is a major cause of concern. Now, there are various reasons for why this is the case. Whether it's cultural, whether it's educational, whether it's I think access related. So there are various reasons to it. I'm not going to go down that, but I think it's very important nonetheless to understand how can we really address these issues if we are to to get out of this financial inclusion gap. Now, to talk about TASE, for example, what's interesting is that we have, so TASE envisions to be a full stack neobank, and we've gone into the market with our first product, which has been a nano lending product. And just sharing some numbers, what we've seen is that out of our borrowers, 91% are actually male. 9% of them are females, which is still, it might be a good number compared to the others, but still it's a worrisome number. And, we've carried out various surveys in different areas in Pakistan, rural, urban, both. And what we've really seen is, there's actually a mindset change that actually exists between males and females. And this is something that we're aware of, they're a different species altogether. So their preferences would be very different as well. And I think the problem here has been that most financial institutions, let's not even talk about women. Even if we talk about the un and underserved, there's always a one product fit all methodology that's adopted by the banks and the institutions currently. And we can't expect that to be, a success factor or even address the needs of the masses. If you are to really address the concerns of the needs, you have to come up with customized products. So that customer centricity that actually evolves into product centricity is utmost. And that's what we've tried doing within TASE as well. And this is a very interesting finding that we actually found. So TASE lends based on our proprietary algorithms that we develop in-house. So we use smartphone data, and we are using some other telco and transactional data now as well to understand customer behavior. So initially, when our algorithm was developing, what we saw was, it's actually whatever is fed into the algorithm, as you call garbage in, garbage out, the output would actually be dependent on the kind of input that gets into it. So initially, we were getting a lot of males that were actually coming onto the system, and the algorithm was being trained on male data. And, we keep on testing how the cohorts have performed over time. And one time I actually applied for a loan, and our algorithm rejected me for a loan. And I happened to be, I think, credit worthy. My algorithm didn't think so. So what we actually did, we tried to understand what was happening. And what we really saw was that, because the algorithm had been exposed to so much data from males, it actually had been trained on most of the customer patterns of males. And so, ever since, we've been trying to include more women by actually having a separate set of an algorithm that is trained differently for males and differently for females. So that's the kind of changes that we're trying to bring in to include more and more women. So that's a little about, what happened with TASE. Other than that, I think a very important perspective here is to look into the literacy and awareness of females. So we partnered with the Japan International Cooperation Agency and the Women Development Department, whereby we've actually developed an entire video series campaign to teach the women basics of finances, be it budgeting, then comes how to open a mobile wallet, lending, savings, so on and so forth. But I think it has to be an entire ecosystem change within the life of a woman and the household of the women to bring about that changes. And why I say household, so this survey we conducted in Sakkar once, and we saw, we interviewed the males of the household and the females of the household. While the man asked, how do I get a loan? The woman asked, how can I save? And that actually led on to develop two additional products. That one of them is under pilot right now, and the other one is being developed. One of them is a digital ROSCA, digital committee, and the other one a very exciting fractional goal savings product, which is currently under development and to be launched in the coming quarter. So that's the kind of mindset shift that organizations and institutions like ourselves need if we are to bring that change. And I think this is something I would be stressing less, because I think most of us know that including women actually has a three-pronged impact on the economy and the lives of a nation overall. It's social, economic, and commercial, these three impacts. If we talk about social, I think with digital financial services, one of the biggest challenges that we face amongst women in the society is mobility and social interaction limitations. So I think digital financial services can easily bring about that change. I really love this, new campaign that Jazz is actually doing on enhancing that mobile ownership and the stigma that actually lie around a woman owning a smartphone, for example. So I think we need more changes like that to bring in that multiplier effect, because we're aware that when women are provided access to financial services, they invest the proceeds in their households, be it the health of their children, the education of their children, and also businesses that ultimately contribute towards the empowerment of their own households. One study conducted in Nepal showed that financial access, a bank account, a simple bank account owned by females actually contributed to enhancing their total assets by about 16%. So, these are the kind of changes that we need, the perspective change that we need, to bring about that shift in the way we are providing financial services to females and men alike, if we are to really change that platform altogether.
Right. Thank you, Noreen. Thank you very much. So moving on to Jafar now, and Jafar, I'm going to put you on spot here with some of the numbers. So in Pakistan, the adoption, as we believe, is being led by telecom sector. And there are more than 150 million mobile phone users in Pakistan and who are now biometrically verified. Also, part of this user base are millennials or Generation Y, who are more adaptive to innovation and gadgets. As we believe, the literacy rate among this lot is 75%, which is probably about 15% more than the general literacy rate among adults. About 70% of e-commerce orders are coming from people between ages of 18 and 34. So demographics are very favorable. So what are telecom companies doing to encourage further adoption of digital financial services using the mobile platform?
Thank you, Zishan, and the NIC team for having me. I think, as you've said, the market is huge in Pakistan. There are 150 million customers who have a mobile phone or are biometrically verified. The whole game changed when State Bank of Pakistan allowed biometrically verified customers to open L0 accounts. Right now, the market is so huge that I think from if I wear my product manager or a business segment hat, we need to customize, but the whole mass market is out there. The focus right now should be, yes, customizing products according to different segments, for example, women, youth, etc. But right now, I think more than anything, what we need to work on as an industry is customer experience. So acquiring a customer has a cost. If you have more money, like most of the telcos and some banks, you can acquire customers at a but retaining them, providing them with a customer experience where they see value in transacting, where they see value in saving money or investing. That's the key here. I think in Pakistan, what we lack, I think most of my colleagues in the banks would agree that the customer experience is one thing where we are not actually addressing the customer needs, where we're just pushing the product to the end consumer. So one, I would say, yes, we are working a lot towards empowering women, and that's a key goal for us, that out of our total user base, we should target women and we should address their needs. But we're also cognizant of the fact that the experience differs from segment to segment. So that experience game that I think would develop when the competition intensifies, because as you mentioned, in Pakistan, telcos are in the lead, and there are only two major telcos in Pakistan who are taking the lead. In my view, as a financial services professional, I would love to see more competition. I would love to see people competing on experience rather than fees or discounts. So customer experience should determine which service provider you are going to use. So the opportunity is there. It's up to us how we exploit it. I think when we started 12 years back, I was lucky enough to be a part of the team which pioneered financial services in Pakistan. But I think there's still a long way to go. I, for one, am not happy with the pace of change that has happened over a decade. I would like to see more competition. I would like to see people rather than focusing on tech, because customer experience should drive tech, not the other way around. So I think the opportunity is there. Different telcos are trying to tap different consumer segments. We've tried doing that through tapping communities where we can have access to women and enable them to open their accounts.
Thank you, Jafar. Thank you very much. I'll be now moving on to Taimur. Taimur, can you please check your mic? Is your mic working now?
Could you hear me now?
I can hear you, but
I think there is a problem with my mic. If you can hear me, I can continue. Otherwise, I can type.
right, Taimur. So we cannot hear you. I'll come back to you in a bit.
Yeah, and do let me know if you get to hear me.
I get to hear you now. I get to hear now.
There you go. I think we have sorted the problem now. Thanks a lot. You can go on with your question, and I'll be happy to reply to that.
Right. Thank you, Taimur. So, Jafar just mentioned that the pace is very slow. But one of the most recent hallmarks, which I think could really up the pace in fintech industry, is the announcement of Rast. And I would like to congratulate you and your team and the State Bank for this game-changing infrastructure. Can you tell us briefly what Rast is, and how will this and similar initiatives which Karandas and other institutions are coming up with to promote financial inclusion in the country?
Gee, thank you very much, Zishan, for having me here, and it was exciting listening to all the panelists. When I define Rast, I would say at this moment that it's the beginning of change. It's literally like the Ryago Kuzu Band Karna when I'm going to explain what Rast is, and I would really like to take this opportunity to explain and to also clarify some of the perception about what Rast is. So Rast is primarily an infrastructure deployed at State Bank of Pakistan, and the operations are being managed by State Bank of Pakistan. It is, we can say, as the instant payment system, a switch which is going to effectively connect all entities. And when I say all entities, there's a trick in it. There could be regulated, there could be non-regulated, there could be entities. And the rollout is going to be sequential with different phases. So I'll explain you the phases, and thereon we can, talk about what is going to happen in the future and how is this infrastructure going to support the industry, particularly fintechs. So at the very beginning of it, the infrastructure has been implemented. The very first use case of government disbursements has been launched. So there are indirect participants and there are direct participants. There could be licensed participants and there could be non-licensed participants. For now, the State Bank has decided to only allow the licensed players to be the participants. And as for the non-licensed players, they've only allowed the government entities like AGPR, which is responsible for dispersing pension payments, salaries of the government employees, a SaaS program for dispersing funds to the beneficiaries using the banking channels. So the first use case is the bulk disbursement utility that has been exposed to multiple government institutes, which they can use to upload a bulk file, which is used to either send a payment to their employees or to send a payment to their beneficiaries. The switch, which is the instant payment system, or as we call RAST, is now getting connected to multiple banks. As we speak, I think 13 banks are active and there are another including micro commercial banks, which are getting ready to be connected to this infrastructure. So the first use case has gone live now. HBR is going to use it, and they're going to disperse salaries to their government employees. The second use case that we are foreseeing by the end of July, I would say, is an account directory function. Now, this is something which is very new to Pakistan. And I would say we are following footsteps of what India did with their central payment system. So an account directory is primarily an alias-based mapper where all the end consumers can define an alias for themselves and link their preferred bank account with that alias. That alias could be their email address, that alias could be their mobile phone number, any unique identifier like CNIC. For a matter of fact, we are currently in phase one, are thinking of assigning CNIC as the alias, just to keep things simple for the people, for the end public. And later on, there are plans to introduce different categories of aliases. There could be many-to-many linkages. You can have many aliases, you can have many accounts, but in the first phase, it is CNIC linked with one account. A consumer, just to dumb down things, a consumer has to walk into the bank branch, use a digital channel to have an alias assigned and have an account linked to that alias. Now, how is this going to change things? First of all, when you want to send money to me, you need to know my bank account. You need to know my bank account number, not the first 10 digits, but the whole 24, at least 18 digits of it, which is the total IBAN. Then you need to know the bank that I am using, and then you need to go chip in some details, add me as a beneficiary, authenticate it, and then I exist as a beneficiary that you can send money to. The process, like Jafar explained, has directly to do with usability. It's difficult. The alias system, which the RAST is going to bring in, is really going to, reduce that hassle of adding a beneficiary. All you have to do is to know my alias and send it across to me just by putting in that alias and the amount. That is what this account directory function is going to introduce. And we are very hopeful that this is going to come in the Q3 of this year. इंडिया के अंदर इसको आधार सिस्टम के ऊपर पैसे सेंड करना कहते हैं using the UPI layer. A very similar thing is going to be happening here in Pakistan. Phase 3 is something that I personally am very, really looking forward to. It's the local payment scheme of Pakistan, where the small merchants can have any account and consumer can have any account, and they can pay to that using our very local scheme, which is going to be administered by State Bank of Pakistan. Currently, we use a debit card on the or a credit card at the retailer. The settlement happens through international settlement schemes, which naming a few is Visa, MasterCard, or UPI. And that cycle takes around 4 to 5 days to get the money settled into a merchant's account. The other leg of it, that the merchant onboarding itself is very difficult under current circumstances. You have to have a full-fledged banking account. You need to have the KYC done. There's a suite of KYC documentation that you have to arrange, which possibly is not available for most of the merchants in Pakistan. So we really are going to, working on the local payment scheme of Pakistan, where a merchant can be quickly brought on board on a tiered based KYC, so that there's not much requirement of a documentation. A bank can acquire a merchant, and any bank consumer can pay to that merchant through Rast. So this is something that is really exciting, which is going to come, local settlements, local payments, and we hope that payments being the basis of financial inclusion, because it is being used all across the pyramid, no matter which type of consumer you are, is going to be enabled through this particular use case. So this is something that we are excited to bring through Rast. There is one more thing that I want to touch upon, where I want to clarify some of the misperceptions. So when we talk about fintechs, there are fintechs which are regulated, there are fintechs which are not regulated, there are fintechs which are software houses, there are fintechs which can go and acquire consumers, partner with other financial institutions, offer a financial service to the end consumer. Even for those type of fintechs, some of it are to be registered at SECP. There is a different license that they have to get, and some of them have to go to State Bank of Pakistan. And mind you, the license is not very lucrative for the startup, initial level of investment people. It requires a lot of money to get a license and get into this play. So these type of fintechs are perceived to be, leveraging Rast system. So as for today, and as for the planning that has been done at State Bank of Pakistan, we have bifurcated it into by saying that there would be direct participants and there would be indirect participants. So for the fintechs, which are not license holders of either of the two regulators, will be indirect participants through their banking partners. Ijlal at the beginning of this session was very passionate about using rails and roads of his bank by the fintechs. That is something that fintechs have to leverage on if they want to get to the utilities or the products or services that Rast is offering. In future, we do foresee that there is going to be different licensing regimes, which will bring fintechs into the ambit of licensing, and then they can be participatory in the Rast framework. But for now, they could be indirect participants. And just to dumb down things more, if you are a bill aggregator and if you want to settle through Rast, you have to partner with a bank. The bank would use the rails and roads of Rast. The settlement is going to be real time. This is one of the main, I would say, usage of Rast, where a typical settlement would take 2 days, but Rast would, enable it on a near real-time basis, and the backend accounts would be settled on a real-time basis. That is really going to help the banking partners. Fintechs are going to see a real-time picture of their transactions, where they're going to, carry out their transaction. What is the picture look like of their consumers and clients at a particular point in time? That is what Rast is going to enable for them. So for now, fintechs, which are non-license holders, will be participants through their banking partners. And the indirect participants, which are being allowed for direct connection, are only government entities for now. We foresee that it's a big change in Pakistan that has already happened. Like India, there could be more licenses, which will enable fintechs to get to be the direct participants of Rast. But I see that there is still time to move to that stage where fintechs, non-license holders, could be made part of the infrastructure. And there is a reason to that. There's a lot of risk, systematic risk that is involved, and we need to be very careful of opening up things right at the beginning. We are really careful in avoiding a situation where the whole new infrastructure is going to get questioned when it comes to exposure to risk. So that is how we are going to control it. Exciting times ahead. I'll be glad to take more particular questions on Rast as we continue in this session.
Thank you, Taimur, and I'm going to come back to you later on this risk part and identifying the right balance part as well, because this is, I believe, is also very important. But now I'm going to move back to Fahad. Fahad, So the industry experts expect that partnerships between fintech and innovators, and financial institutions will dominate the future of industry. So how, in your opinion, does this partnership need to ideally work to take the fintech industry to the next level?
Thank you, Zishan, for that question. If we think about this in a compartmentalized way, uh, what do fintech companies want? Noreen was earlier talking about this financial, and what do FIs want, right? So I would imagine that if I was a fintech company, I would want access to scale that banks have. I would want access to capital, and I would want the ability to pilot, these very ambitious projects and products to a larger scale. If I was an FI, I would want quick, affordable, and sustainable scaling up of my products, right? So where's the synergy between these two things to take that partnership to the next level? It's really about the scale. And I think that's what makes Pakistan so exciting, as everybody keeps on talking about. We have these 5.5 million MSMEs, largely unbanked. We keep talking about these small businesses that they constitute 30% of our GDP. You look at our partner countries or our peer countries, they constitute 60% of GDP, right? So there's this massive, gap, and that's really what we want to bridge right now. A few days ago was International Women's Day, and it's something that you were talking about earlier. The real gap is really, at the gender level, which is so unfortunate, and which I think we can all see as one of the major constraints of this country going to the next level. So coming back to your question on partnerships, I think we have to define what is the next level. And for me, it's about this gender gap. It's about this access to finance gap. And so if we want to really take it to the next level, I think we need really, passionate people like Taimur at Karandas, or Noreen as an entrepreneur, or Jafar taking it to the next level, Ijlal as well. And I think, we seem to have a lot of pieces there, and now we need to bring them together. So I think any partnership, you need to have synergies. The synergies are there. You need to have a common objective, and I think that's really where I would. I think the FIs need to strengthen what their view of that objective is, right? For the last 20 years, I think in 2005 or so, or maybe 2007, according to SPP reports, the commercial banking sector was lending to 200,000 SMEs. 15 years later, we're still lending to 200,000 SMEs, right? So is that objective there to really enhance to enhance access to finance? Because if it's there, we've got fintechs who can solve those issues, right? Or who can solve them maybe one day, or who can use Rust, or who can. So I think we really need to have a common goal on what is the next level. And I think once we agree on what that goal is, and when I say we, I mean people like NIC who can help develop that public policy dialogue. I think that's really when you'll see these partnerships really work and essentially help Pakistan get to the next level, which is from my perspective, I think from most of our perspective, that's really what it's about. How do we become the next Vietnam? We talk about Vietnam and Bangladesh and India. How do we get there? It's through these partnerships, and it's through having a common goal.
Okay, thank you, Fahad. Yes, we need to have a common goal to achieve what we want to achieve in this fintech space. Noreen, moving on to you, or coming back to you, as a blessing in disguise, as I always call COVID-19 situation, that the COVID-19 has accelerated the adoption of digital technologies across different verticals. Do you think? What do you think about that? How is fintech emerging as an exciting space, and what are the opportunities that exist? Do you think we've done enough to take advantage of the pandemic in this space?
I see. I honestly, I get asked this question a lot, and definitely there's a lot of optimism, But I think it's also very important to have some element of realism. Um, and talking about the various industries, I think e-commerce, without a doubt, has done fairly well. We see, even just in FY20, we saw transactions, boosted by about 55% as compared to the previous year. That's over $230 billion rupees worth of transactions that were increased during the COVID time. Be it for food delivery, for groceries, and other retail. And this is actually what drove, mobile transactions, branches banking transactions. If we look into digital transaction numbers, there has been about a 65% growth just in Q4 2020, and doubled amount of mobile banking transactions during that time. But that was primarily driven on the back of e-commerce. And I think, of course, the government did take a few initiatives when, for example, making IBFT free was definitely, I think, it just nudged that push towards conducting mobile banking transactions. But for me, the question mark, and I honestly don't have numbers to it, I think we need to get those numbers, is how many of them were actually new to banking? And I think that's a major cause of concern for us, because most of us who had been banked earlier on were the same people who were actually conducting those transactions. And the other question for me would be, how sustainable will this momentum be? Like Jaffer mentioned earlier, and I actually will borrow from Amir Ibrahim from JazzCash. He said this on this panel I shared with him the other day, that we're in a power play and we're taking singles. So I think that's where we actually lie in terms of how the digital mobile transaction ecosystem has evolved. And COVID, I think the benefit, as you said, it has been it has been a blessing in disguise, certainly for us. It's had an overnight change in behavior. And I think that definitely is something that we should be banking on. But I think one major shift that we really saw expedited was this term that we use a lot now is platformication. That is moving from just connectivity platforms to value creation platforms. And with all due respect to Jazz, I think EasyPaisa did a marvelous job at that during this time. They actually started using their platform for various different services, integrating all sorts of use cases on it. So I think that is what the mindset shift has to be towards, be it coming from the telcos or the banks or fintechs collaborating. But I think that's what COVID has driven, that direction. And I think three very important areas that we need to really focus on as fintechs. And when we say fintechs, I don't only mean licensed fintechs as ourselves. I think it includes both banks and telcos alike. Would be to focus on three areas. That would be access, efficiency, the speed, and the affordability of the transactions. And of course, third would be customization to match the needs. I think now when we talk about that momentum and that requirement, there we need primary changes overall on the policy framework. And when we talk about policy, there is so much that has to be done right now within the fintech ecosystem. You talk about data, for example. It's a major cause of concern. We just have been talking now about sharing of data, centralization of data. I think so. Policies around that and how we bring in repositories around data is a major cause of concern right now. You talk about countries like China, India. Honestly, they're a different league now, and the way they've actually capitalized on and structured their data and the use of that data has monumentally changed the face of fintech for them. One great example in just the past couple of months has been that collaboration between Jio and Facebook. It's a multi-billion-dollar investment that came into India. And I think they capitalize on all these three: access, efficiency, and customization. And I think with all due respect to the great work that our startups are doing, if you talk about the investment landscape, and Zuhair Sab, mentioned, the startup ecosystem has gotten some funding, but honestly, is it enough to drive critical mass? I personally feel no. A lot more has to be done, and we have that potential to attract that investment. So we need more eyeballs coming into Pakistan, the Pakistani fintech space, because there's a lot that can be done. And I think I was talking about, a policy framework. Honestly, there's a lot that has to be done on the digital ID side. Temur was mentioning the great work, and this great step that RAS, has brought in. How we actually execute that will be monumental. How we, as an industry, utilize it is going to be in our hands now. I think that's all they could have done. Of course, it has to be evolved, with State Bank and Karandas, but how the sector actually uses this platform is key at the end of the day. And I think we're just beginning to think of those use cases. So honestly, those are a few of my takeaways from this particular environment. We talk about digital identity. I think the authorities have to become a little more active. The regulators, honestly, I think they're doing a good job, but how fast they're moving, I'm not really certain whether they're moving fast enough. PTA has to be more involved. I think they've been on the backseat for a long time now. Nadra, for me, has been, well, I think silent on quite a few matters. And digital ID plays a very, very important role for fintechs over here. So, I think they have to come up. I think the problem here is shying away from challenges is not going to solve their solutions. If there are challenges, let's face them and just deal with them heads on. Otherwise, we're just going to remain here having these conversations of what should be done rather than how it should be done. So I think this is where we stand. I definitely am and will continue to be a strong promulgator of fintech. It's my space. And so there's so many others like myself in this field who are working in it. But it definitely is a challenging space with, magnanimous potential. Yeah, so I think, and Fahad actually mentioned this point, and I couldn't stress upon it any less. Collaborations is key. We really have to focus on how we can do it, efficiently to the benefit of both the incumbents and the fintech. It's not about just signing agreements and doing transactions. It has to be a win-win for both. So a lot has to be thought about, and I think these conversations now really need to evolve faster towards how we are going to achieve these things rather than what we should be achieving.
Thank you, Noreen. Indeed, the conversation now should be, how are we going to achieve instead what do you want to achieve. So I totally agree with that. Moving on to Jafar. Jafar, I'm gonna keep the question short this time to compensate for the long question that I asked last time. So how the recent developments in e-payments and e-wallets in Pakistan creating an enabling environment for startups to step into this space and create disruption?
Thank you, Zishan. First of all, I think I 100% agree with Noreen. Working for this space for a decade, I think things need to pace up. Instead of just having these signing ceremonies and competing with each other, the pie is so large that if we just collaborate with each other and just try to take advantage of each other's products or expertise, that could really help us pace up the evolution of financial services in Pakistan. Another question that I would like to ask them before answering your question is regarding RAST being handled by the regulator. So when we discuss amongst ourselves as industry professionals, one thing that I as a Pakistani have not much trust on is the government handling things like this very crucial piece of infrastructure that RAST is. Number one, kudos to the Karandas team and the State Bank team to come up with it. But I think there needs to be more involvement of startups like Tez, like telcos and banks. So you should need to have a management structure around it where we see stake of the private sector in it. Coming back to your question, I think it's a huge opportunity for new startups because cash on delivery has a cost. It leads to wastage also. And now with the evolution of financial services, you see that integration has become easier for startups. I remember when we launched our payment gateway, the time it took to integrate one website was around a month or so. Now it happens in hours. There are other many technological advancements for financial services where digital onboarding is available now. I remember previously we used to run after these memorandum of associations and Form A and Form B and God knows whatnot. So I think startups, it's the right time to enter this space. It's the right time to collaborate. I think right now the industry is also very open to partnerships. Previously, I remember we were not that open to partnerships. We used to try to do everything on our own. But now I think the mindset has changed. We're really looking to partner with people who have expertise in that space. And just a comment on the growth of transactions during COVID. Yes, when you make anything free, you see growth. The principle of economics is that consumption is highest at zero. But you should also see the cost of changing this pricing structure for a lot of financial services institutions. So previously, millions were made by commercial entities. Now State Bank has made it free. The problem that I see with the regulator intervening in pricing decisions are implications for commercial organizations, because you see we are here to serve our customers and also are responsible to answerable to our stakeholders. Pay our salaries, right? So everything has a, I think, have a problem personally. Not when regulators interfere in commercial decisions. So I would like the panel to also get in here, and if I can have their views also. Thank you.
Thank you, Jafar. Thank you very much. And it appears that most of the discussion and most of the in this fintech space is around regulations. So coming back to the regulations and coming back to Taimur, let's talk about the balance in the regulatory system. We all know that regulatory support is critical component of this fintech ecosystem, and the regulatory framework for financial services is fairly strong in Pakistan, with laws such as payment system operators that we call PSOs or PSPs, and branches banking regulations issued by State Bank. All of these could act as platform for carefully controlled and regulated fintech growth. Nonetheless, these regulations should not be viewed only as support, as it might also become a threat for the emerging fintech industry, and which is still is very relatively new when compared to other developed ecosystems in the world. So, Taimur, how can a balanced regulation or regulatory landscape be created to support innovation, at the same time protect consumer using digital financial services?
Yeah, so Zishan, I would speak in context of the 3 FinTech Disrupt Challenge rounds that we had concluded in 2017, 18, and 19 previously, and there were about 12 FinTechs that we had supported. And this is the experience that I've had with FinTech startups and then regulations. So my first personal opinion is that Pakistani regulatory is very tight for this particular segment. Acquiring a license is expensive, it's difficult, it requires a lot of investment, experience, and a very rigid kind of organization structure to get into a regulatory regime. And I'm talking particularly about financial services institution being regulated by State Bank of Pakistan. So as an innovator, as a startup, it's very difficult for me to find my space and get into that arena and play. Very recently, we have seen things changing with the other regulator, SECP, and somebody in our respected panelist has mentioned the sandbox. I believe it was Fahad that mentioned. So when we talk about getting into a regulatory embed, we have to be, very sure of our product. The commercial viability has to be there. You have to roll it out perfectly. You have to have, a lot of bucks to, get to that stage. Lekin the innovation really happens and the disruption really happens when you want to break away from your current, I would say, business models, your current offering, your current value propositions. That limitation does exist in Pakistan. There is not much room for the startups, fintechs to play around and then to, get to a stage where they become part of the regulation. So this sandbox, and effectively at SCCP, there's this vertical that they have, which is called fintech. They are doing peer-to-peer lending. They are doing crowd lending there. They are also in and they are also encouraging digital onboarding for asset management. So these are the 3-4 things that they have included in their SCCP sandbox. Now, what effectively that does is that allows a young entrepreneur, a new person in the market to revolutionize the idea that they have. You need to have a good idea, then you have to have backing by the regulator where you operationalize it. So Sandbox does give you that flexibility of checking out the commercial viability, checking out the risks that are involved in that idea. And then if that's a click, you get into the regulatory ambit. And if that's the click, you have done the disruption in the market. That is effectively really going to, pull off innovation in Pakistani market. And in my personal opinion, I'm really looking forward to a sandbox at the SCCP State Bank of Pakistan side as well. Maybe that can leverage the rails and roads of Rast, and I'm a pro for that. And that is really going to bring in innovation from there. Now, talking about the risk factor in it, under a certain regulatory umbrella, not a license, you should be allowed to play around in a given limitation that is extended to you, which will then bring in the disruption or innovation in that particular segment or the value proposition that you are doing. And that is how it has happened around the world. We have seen many unicorns, fintech unicorn appearing in India in last 3 years, of course, because they have leveraged the instant payment system that they have implemented. Now they have also leveraged infrastructure from, as compared to in Pakistan, jaise their Aadhaar system is similar to Nadra. They have included that as a part of the infrastructure. Pakistan, it's a bit difficult to leverage that infrastructure. There's cost involved there. They are also very recently halted fintechs to operate Nadra APIs for your thumb impression without the sensor. So there are problems. So I would say that the infrastructure for innovation does exist in Pakistan. It just needs sort of a rearrangement and interconnectivities to trigger that change, and that is still missing. And that is very well that I acknowledge ke aisa hai. So in my view, I think we are too at a nascent stage to even talk about के risk को manage कैसे करना और data protection को manage कैसे करना है. I think we are so tightly coupled कि अभी we cannot even think about getting out of those boundaries and testing or stretching our limits कि if there is a problem with data privacy or risks or not. So Sandbox is something which can give us the leverage to do that. And that is something which has happened in one of the regulators and should also happen in the other regulator as well, in my humble personal opinion. And Zishan, if you would allow, I would also want to reply to Jafar's question, if time permits.
If it can be done very quickly, then we just...
I'll take a minute to answer that. So as of today, nobody is stopping any other entity to have a similar infrastructure RAS to do that. Any private entity can take a PSO PSP. Even before it started in State Bank of Pakistan, we did give an offer to everybody around to start working on this, which is on the level 1 principles of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. State Bank of Pakistan fortunately stepped ahead. They started implementing, they've done the implementation. For a matter of fact, just to comfort the people in the industry, State Bank of Pakistan is hiring specialized resources to operate and to run the system. So it is going to be effectively something which is really going to be responsive to the industry. The BMGF level 1 principles state that it has to stay low cost because it is a pro financial inclusion, pro poor infrastructure that they have to build. Then the governance has to be inclusive. all participants needs to be part of the governance as well. So these are some of the things which are being enabled by it being in the State Bank of Pakistan. We believe it's the beginning. In future, it could be a separate thing, a separate entry, but just to start it off, I think it's a very well-placed infrastructure to trigger the change, to reinforce the change as well. So really looking forward to how things operationalize from here. And that's about it. Thank you, Zishan.
Thank you, Taimur. Thank you very much. And now I think we'll have to conclude the session. I have a long list of questions with me, but unfortunately we won't be able to take those questions live because we're running out of time. But many of the questions we've answered already here, and some of the questions we'll answer online. If there's any question from any specific panelist, which we have already, we'll send it to the particular panelist and we'll request him or her to answer the question for the audience, for the benefit of the audience. I really enjoyed the discussion. We had a very interesting discussion, and it seems that the need is there. The infrastructure is pretty much there. What's required is a slight rearrangement of the ecosystem or the regulations to move forward, and everyone to be on the same page, and everyone working towards the same goal, be it regulators, be it startups, be it financial institutions. So everyone has to be on the same page. So this is my major takeaway, and there's a lot of room for innovation for this is especially startups who want to come into this fintech space. I hope it was very useful for all of the audience as well, and I would like to thank panelists again for offering their great insights. It's an evolving space. In the coming days, we'll see more innovations and many shifts in strategies and policies. Some of those we were able to discuss today, and we'll continue to do so in future. Thank you all for attending. Stay safe. Have a great day. Over to Isha and my colleague Zain, who are going to go over the application process now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Zishan. Thank you to all the panelists for joining us. It was wonderful to have you over. Thank you for the attendees, for your active participation. This brings us to our last part of the day, and it's because we received a lot of queries with regards to the application. I have with me the community manager at NIC, Zain Khalid, who will be walking you through the application process. If you have any questions regarding that, you can ask him. He'll be happy to answer them live for you. Then you could probably also share your screen. So yeah, there you go. Yes, it will just make it easier for people to understand what you're talking about. Super. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Isha. And thank you to all the panelists. It was a really informative session for me as well. So very quickly, we'll go over the application form. In the basic description, जो कि form के top पे exist करती है, what is most important is that you go through these thematic areas. If you click on this link, it will lead you to a PowerPoint, a PDF rather, where you will get details of all of the individual thematic areas that we've identified. So banking के अलग जो sub points हैं वो सारे वहाँ पे आ जाएंगे. ठीक है. Move on करते हैं. Basic information is, as the name suggests, it's basic information. Startup name, where are you based? We'd like to know your location ताकि हमें भी थोड़ा सा idea हो जाए. Applicant name, email address, phone number, profession, so that we know where you're coming from, and your age, so that we make sure you're not at a disadvantage or at a huge advantage. Okay. आगे चलते हैं to the more important parts of the application. So we've tried to make this application as simple as possible for you guys, so that we can get a good handle of what all there is out there in the fintech space. So problem से start करेंगे. आप लोग, since you're applying to a hackathon, you're obviously hacking solutions to particular financial technology problems, right? So आपने in the first section, you have to define the problem. Numbers use करेंगे, फायदा हो जाएगा. Numbers always, numbers black and white होते हैं, numbers never lie. So do use numbers when you're trying to define the problem. I would prefer if you elaborate on the problem as well. क्या चीज़ है जिसे आप टारगेट कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. उसके बाद थीमेटिक एरिया आ जाएगा. थीमेटिक एरिया तो आपको पता ही होगा क्या. You can also choose multiple thematic areas, as you can see, and yeah. So फिर solution पे आते हैं. आप आपका जो solution है जो आपने सोचा हुआ है for the problem areas or the problem statements जो कि हमने put out की हुई हैं वो यहाँ पे आएगा. How do you plan to solve this problem? This is possibly the most important question out there because this will tell us आप लोगों का exact solution है क्या, आप लोग क्या करना चाहते हैं, किस तरह से solve करना चाहते हैं वो problem जो कि आपने पिछले section में define की. So this is where you describe your solution. This is where you, and also this section is where you give us the link to your solutions as well. So it always helps in competitions if you have a prototype ready. So if you have a prototype, if you are saying things in the previous question, जो कि आपने हमें, you want to give us links to actually go through what you're trying to explain to us. So this would be the section to do it. उसमें so we would prefer कि आपके अपने links ही हों, इधर external links होंगे तो I mean it just needs to be explanatory. ठीक है. Your team is obviously very important because your team defines the ability of your startup to actually succeed. Team के बगैर आज तक किसी ने कुछ नहीं किया. Anybody who says they did everything on their own is lying. So individual, but that statement is by no means meant to discourage individuals from applying as well. आप लोग करें, but it's just that when we're gauging applications, we want to know that if you're applying, you should also have the ability to execute what you're trying to implement. ठीक है. अगर वो नहीं होगा, अगर एक ही individual बैठ के application भरा होगा and it's just an idea and it's just really out there utopian idea, so उसके chances obviously कम होते हैं as compared to something more practical and more implementable, because हमारा जो hackathon है that we're conducting in Kahoot with a lot of really great partners as well. So we would like the winners to take advantage of these partners being on board. ये आपकी सारी implementation करेंगे, जो आपके सारे technical challenges है वो आपको solve होंगे, आपको experts मिलेंगे इसके through, which is why the ability of your team to implement your idea is a very important factor. Okay. Members of your team, you can have any number of members in your team. Having a large number of members doesn't necessarily put you at a better position within this hackathon. Okay. Experience of your background, experience and the background of your team members is important, because that is what will actually enable everybody to understand कि आपकी team क्यों expert है. आप अगर एक accounting related solution निकाल रहे हैं और उसके अंदर आपके पास एक CTO है जो techie है, then you have a chartered accountant who has the practical knowledge, then you have someone in business development जो जाके बेच के आएगा वो चीज़. That's a good well-rounded team, right? So you have to make sure कि आप जो अपना case build करते हैं within this application, it has to be a well-rounded case. ठीक है. आगे चलते हैं. Yeah, that was it. It will take you about, so जो Microsoft Forms जो हमें estimate दे रहा है is about 7 minutes. It will hopefully take you longer to do so. And just spend time, इसके ऊपर time लगाएं, इसके ऊपर मेहनत करें, multiple iterations निकालें अपने answers की, till such time that you are in love with each and every word that is being put out there in the application. So yeah, that's it from my side. And once again, आप लोगों को कोई questions हो, कोई भी with regards to this application, I will just be dropping my email in the comment section, ताकि आप लोग मुझे email करके वो सवाल वगैरह पूछ लें. And बाकी our goal was to make this form as simple as possible, because we just like you to fill it and like you to do so without facing any challenges. Okay. So that's it from my side. Thank you all. And मैं भी अपना email address जो है drop कर. ठीक है. I think that is also it. हमारा panel जो है and our today's event is also with the conclusion of all of what I had to say has also come to a conclusion. I hope आपके लिए informative हो. I hope you got to learn a lot of things. Right. So if you have any questions, this would be the time to ask. Let me just go through the applications. Please in the application again. Waleed, so just go to our website, nacpakistan.pk. उधर आपको website, sorry, जो application form है वो आपको मिल जाएगा. Tez ka digital credit scoring model, I do believe this is proprietary information. So even if Noreen was here, she would not have answered that. How commerce is going to be registered with a banking partner? Saad Salik, apply kare. If you win the hackathon, it's not going to be a problem at all. Plus, based on what Ijlal was saying, Allied Bank ke baare mein, it's not going to be a problem regardless. Ilava, Rust का document जो है is honestly it's anybody's guess. Asad Kazmi and आपने नहीं Rust आपने सही तरह नहीं spell किया, it's RAAST. So जाएं Google पे लिखें Rust लिखें और news पे click कर दें, so you'll be able to get the latest on what there is to know about Rust or what has been revealed. Rust की तरफ से regulatory sandbox नहीं ठीक हो गया. I think that's it for today. Zuhair Saab, thank you so much for coming as well. Thank you for your time as well. Participants, you can find my email address in the chat here. We will make sure you guys have my email address in case you want any further information.
Dan, on this front, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Dan, on this front, because we've got, we're using the open banking and our APIs and the portal for the solutions. If you could share the contact details from somebody from Allied Bank, probably mine as well, with the team, that would be great, because if they have any issues or queries with regards to the portal, they can then come directly to me. Because what we want to do is we want you guys to develop digital solutions using our portal. Because that way we can, I understand that you'll be developing the business case proposition, something that we can evaluate theoretically. But when it comes to the technology side of it, we want you guys to be on your, toes, and we would evaluate the sort of codes that you've used, the sort of, if it's seamless or not, and the sort of solutions that you've developed. So I believe Zen would share my contact details with you too, and hopefully we'll be there to help you out throughout the whole process.
Will do, Ijlal. And to all the participants, आप लोगों को webinar के बाद जो email जाएगी उसके अंदर मेरा email address included होगा, so you can get my email address from there. So Zuhair Saab, would you like to say any concluding words to all of the people who are still in the audience?
Ji, thank you so much. Thank you all the participants for taking the time to attend this thing. I think we, as I said earlier, are on the verge of something very exciting. One of my experiences over the years is that, wherever we are in the world, and it's not specific to Pakistan, innovation will bring about the regulatory changes. It will not happen the other way around. So if you sit around and wait for regulatory changes to happen so that you can do what you need to do, I think you could sit around forever. So my advice, my sharing of my experience would be innovate and let the regulatory framework catch up with you. And that's the only way to drive a technology, in my experience.
Well said,
you all
Zuhair.
good luck. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. On that very wise note, we will end today's session. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. मिलते हैं फिर, inshallah. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Khuda Hafiz.